So we are working on our essay 2 and hopefully getting it going and just about ready for peer review. So here we go. For this week you'll be copying and pasting your essay 2 draft in here, and then you have about 48 hours to read your group's drafts and peer review using the questions below. Okay, so let's have a look at this. The content of the draft. Essay 2 is an analysis argument. Analysis arguments focus on the argument. They don't make an argument, they analyze the argument that other people are making. Okay. Analysis arguments do weigh, compare, and contrast the arguments. So they look for the value of the arguments, what arguments are being made that are similar, and what arguments are being made that are different. The questions that an analysis argument answers include: what issues about this topic do the rhetors discuss? What claims do the rhetors make about these issues? What facts do they point to? And what reasons do they offer? Analysis arguments do not argue for or against a policy, do not take a stand on the issue, do not make a call to action, do not recommend a policy change or that the policy stays the same. They do not attempt to shape readers' attitudes. Okay, so basically the analysis argument is analyzing what the sources say. Drafts should analyze several arguments presented in different sources. The objective of an argument analysis is to make a claim about the stases of arguments on the topic. You're using stasis theory, okay, for essay 2. So, it is not to take a stand. The draft should examine what kinds of sources discuss the topic, what kinds of issues are presented in the sources, who is making what kinds of claims about the issues. The things to evaluate include point of view, audience, okay, so who is doing the talking, who is expected to be listening, the facts pointed to, and the quality of the reasoning. The thesis in the draft should make a claim about what these sources have to say. Your peer's draft should be fairly complete, but probably pretty messy. They should have every appearance of being at least, shall we say, 75% done, so certainly well over half. Your answers to the questions below are meant to help you explain to the authors what strengths and weaknesses you see in the drafts. So that is our goal. First of all, the parts. This draft should include a thesis, though not necessarily a fine introduction. A full body with most sources included and cited should be there, right? We need citations in there. Drafts are not drafts if no source is referenced. This is supposed to be an analysis of sources, so it's not possible to draft this paper without referencing those sources. And of course, you have to have a works cited page with your draft. The conclusion for draft is optional because even if you have written one at this stage, it's probably one you're going to throw away after you finish the paper. So, are all of these required parts, right? Thesis, full body with sources, and works cited page. Are all of those parts there? Please state for number 1 what is missing, if anything. Okay, number 2. Let's look at the introduction or the thesis. This introduction or thesis at the moment, right, it should state the issue or issues under discussion in the sources. So it should tell your readers, what the sources are talking about. It should indicate if there is disagreement on the points among the sources. Do all of the sources agree about things? Do they disagree about anything? That is something that should be mentioned in a thesis. And the introduction / thesis should suggest a map or an order of what is to come in the body. kind of preview the body a bit. Hit highlights. Your completed introduction and your final version will offer two things, right? Background on the topic, probably historical background, like what important thing happened at what point and then what happened after. But good background for this kind of a paper could also be a good definition of an important term with a good example. And also the second part that needs to be in this final introduction is the thesis. And the thesis needs to do its job interpreting the discussion on this topic. All right. Third questions, questions plural, have to do with the body. So does the body include the following responses to Stacy's questions in the following order? So does the body begin with questions and answers of conjecture, where your peer covers first the points of conjecture that the different sources agree upon? That's a good place to start. It's helpful for readers to see where there is agreement before hitting disagreement. It's a nice way of organizing. And then takes readers to the disagreements one at a time. Maybe it peels off one source that disagrees on a small point and moves increasingly to sources that disagree on bigger and bigger things. I don't know. Okay. And then does it respond to the Stacy's questions of definition? So this will be where your peer covers first the points of definition that the different sources agree upon, and then perhaps takes readers to disagreements on definition one at a time. Questions and answers of quality, where your peer covers first the points of quality that the different sources agree upon, and then what do they disagree upon. And then responses to Stacy's questions on policy, where your peer covers first any points of policy that different sources agree upon, and then moves on into the disagreements on policy. And presumably the disagreements are going to be bigger with policy than they might be with the other points, but that remains to be seen. It depends on what kinds of sources you find, who wrote them, and what they have to say. So the makeup of these things is going to depend on the research that you found, that your peer has found. All right, also with the body, please discuss the organizing structures in the draft that enhance your understanding of the discussion of the issue. Organizing and structures include talking all about conjecture at once, all about agreement at once, and then disagreement after, and just following this order of things. So that's an organizing structure. Other organizing and structures include having finely broken paragraphs where what you talk all about one thing in a paragraph and then all about something else in a different paragraph. So paragraphing is also an organizing structure. A third organizing structure is transition words, where, say, you are talking about how two different sources answer the conjecture question the same way. Then you might say, these sources agree upon this point, and then introduce a however, and then this source disagrees upon that. So transition words like however, in addition, similarly. And if you're not sure about transition words, you can Google pretty much anywhere. I'm pretty sure the OWL at Purdue has a list of transition words and a good explanation of them. There are probably some in your textbook. You can go online, and it's a good idea, actually, to have at your disposal a lovely list of transition words and to remember to consult them and use them to guide your readers from one point to the other. Because when you are drafting, everything makes sense when you are drafting, because you are only thinking about yourself as a reader and you already know where you're going. But when other people try to read your work, they do not live in your brain and they do not know where you're going. So you need these helpful little signposts, like turn signals when you're in heavy traffic. It's nice if the person in front of you lets you know that they're going to turn left, isn't it? Left turn signal. It's a good transition. There we go. All right, also about body, Please discuss any organizing structures in the draft that impede your understanding. Maybe there's not enough transitions. Maybe you would like transitions in a particular place. Maybe you see some trouble with the organization of the paragraphs or the order of items discussed. So you want to talk about that, make some suggestions. Here we go. For the body, please offer suggestions for improvement of the discussion, specifically where details, definitions, descriptions, examples, or transitions may help. Okay. And in parentheses, please do not avoid this question by offering instead advice on comma placement, spelling, and other proofreading issues. That is the absolute easiest thing to do, is to tell somebody you need a comma here. And it's also the most useless thing you can tell somebody, that they misspelt there. Well, they're going to find that because they're going to reread what they wrote 7 more times. So ignore proofreading issues for now. They're not important. Such advice is not helpful in the early stages of writing. And also, I'm not going to give you any points for doing that. I'm interested in the content and the organization right now. These are the most important things that you can help each other with. So that's what we'll do. And finally, number 4 is about the in-text citations in the works cited page in MLA style. A, all information offered in the body is referenced in text in MLA style. It's supposed to be, right? So for a paper like this, there should be in-text citations just all over the place, yeah? Maybe the ends of paragraphs where you're taking a few sentences to explain what you learned by reviewing these sources and where they're similar and different. Those won't have in-text citations, but everything else, you know, half this paper, probably more, is going to be full of references where you tell us who is saying what. B, all the sources referenced in text are also on the works cited page. They need to match. And C, all the sources on the works cited page must include full publication details. So if there is an author name, then it needs to go first, and last name first on the works cited page, and in alphabetical order. That's how your readers will find what they need to know. The purpose of a works cited page is not simply so that you can demonstrate that you can do it. You guys are fairly soon, hopefully, going to be entering the world of work and the world of scholarship, the professions, and so forth. And you need to know that a works cited page is not just a nicety that a teacher tells you to do. It is how you will be documenting your work from now until forever. And that work must be done so that the readers of your work have a good understanding of what you looked at. So these things need to be full, and they need to be accurate. Okay, so after the author's name, the title of the article or web page, after the title of the article or web page, then the title of the source, the periodical, or the book. After those things, if it's an academic journal, you need year, volume, and issue number, and page range. Actually, I think I forgot that. For news, magazines, or web articles, you need the date of publication, because these things are usually published really often, like every day or once a week or once every 2 weeks. So use date of publication instead of saying, you know, if you're citing an issue of the New York Times by volume and issue number would be, I don't know, 150. And 222 would be ridiculous. You need the date for news, okay. You also are going to need, I think, the access date for online sources, and the reason for that is that online sources can be altered and disappear and all of that. So access dates. Anything you get online should have a URL, unless you're in the databases, and then what you need is a DOI, if it's offered. Okay, so these are the things that I'm asking you to review, and I hope that you find your time beneficial, and good luck with it.